Feeling a little unsettled and stressed with the way things are in our world? Experience the peace of Jesus with Finding Peace, our 5-day devotional. Visit purposely.com to sign up. Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Let me tell you about my grandmothers. So I was fortunate enough growing up that I got to see them pretty frequently and get to know them. And these women were pivotal in my life. My dad's mom was funny and feisty. She always had a snappy comeback or saying for everything. She was so helpful to the people around her. One day, apparently she went to her neighbor's house and just started fixing a pothole in their driveway without even asking. That was who she was, always helping people. She was resourceful. She was a lunch lady at my dad's school, which always made for funny stories in our family. We have a lot of funny stories about her in general. And then there's my mom's mom, who was just kind and sweet. She was a nurse. She raised 4 kids and was also very resourceful, was an amazing cook. She was mostly gentle and very complimentary to people, but had some sassy words for her family every now and then. I saw it. I loved spending time with both of these women. I miss them terribly. I think about the fact that they lived in a different generation than I did. They raised kids in a different world than I do. And I just respect them and honor them so much for the roles that they played in my family. I'm Jen, by the way, and you're listening to the Bible for Busy People podcast. This week, we are talking about the women named in Jesus' genealogy. Not all of them were named there, so these women are especially significant. And here's what I know about these women. They all had very different experiences. Each one of them shows faithfulness, resilience, and strength in unexpected ways. And most, if not all of them, can be terribly misunderstood. We are starting off strong with Tamar. She is one of those people in the Bible, if you've heard this story, you might feel like you have all figured out. But let's take another look at her story. We're in Genesis 38. Starting in verse 1, it says, "At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira." Now, we know that Judah was one of the 12 sons of Jacob, or Israel, and he becomes the head of his own tribe of people. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her and made love to her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son who was named Er. She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife," that's not as weird back then as it sounds, "and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's household. What do we know about Tamar? Well, she is a Canaanite. She's not an Israelite. Tamar means palm tree, maybe meaning beauty or fruitfulness. She was obtained as a wife, married off to a wicked man who God eventually put to death. I'm going to summarize the rest of the story. So Judah's wife dies. He goes up to spend some time with his friends. And when Tamar hears this, she dresses as a prostitute and waits by the side of the road until Judah shows up, who doesn't recognize her and wants to sleep with her. She takes a couple tokens from him as a pledge for payment later, and then she disappears after all of that happens. Later, she's found to be pregnant, and people drag her out to stone her, thinking that she has been unfaithful to her family. And she brings out the items that were given in pledge, and Judah realizes he's the father. In verse 26, Judah says, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah," and he did not sleep with her again. And Tamar goes on to have twins, Perez and Zerah. This is kind of a wild story in our day and age. So Tamar was handed a truly awful situation in the patriarchal culture. She was married to an awful human being. Then followed the cultural tradition of levirate marriage, where the wife of a dead husband was married to the next brother in line to carry on the lineage and have an heir to receive the brother's inheritance, and also to take care of her. Basically, at the end of the day, she relied on these men to do the right thing and provide for her, and they kept letting her down. At that time, women typically didn't have their own money, didn't own property, didn't run businesses or hold positions of authority. I say typically because there are a few exceptions, and we're going to talk about one tomorrow. But justice was withheld from her, and God refused to allow it. I think we can tend to skip this story, or we can minimize it because it's tough. But I really want to make the point that it's shallow theology to write Tamar off for poor decision-making, or say that she made a bad choice that God used for good. Being deceitful, wearing a prostitute's outfit, sleeping with her father-in-law. It all sounds bad. But I want you to remember that Tamar was out of options. She was not being properly provided for. She was in a situation that she didn't choose and was being denied justice. She was being denied a son, an heir, her portion of the inheritance that was rightfully hers, and someone to provide for her. She was oppressed and marginalized, and also her family was evil and gross. The fact that she knew that Judah was going to go up and probably seek out a prostitute does not say good things about him at the time. So she used what she had. I love how Kat Armas, the author of Abuelita Faith, explains these sometimes misunderstood situations in the Bible. She says, while narratives like these might be shocking for the dominant culture, from Esther hiding her identity from the king of Persia to Jacob cheating his way to an inheritance, engaging in deceit in order to ensure their own liberation or the liberation of an entire people is commonplace in Scripture. In each of these instances, whether it be trickery, lying, or deceit, God blesses the outcome, proving that God is always and consistently on the side of the oppressed. For many marginalized people across history, hopelessness has been the catalyst for change, as moments of desperation force many to use their voice and enact their own agency, particularly when the power structures at hand are designed to domesticate them and keep them silent. It was Tamar's right to have a child that would grow up to provide for her and to be provided for in the household of her family. So in doing this, in engaging in a little bit of deceit and trickery, she not only took care of herself, but continued the family line and ended up being in the lineage of Jesus. I mean, potentially she could have found another way. She could have continued to live in her father's household as a widow, as Judah told her to do. But instead, she pursued justice, and God worked through that to make her part of the lineage of Jesus. Judah honors her at the end, like we said. He says she is more righteous than he. So while this is a tricky situation, she did what was right and brought Judah to the awareness that what he had been doing was wrong. What if righteousness looks different than our black and white standards? Maybe not quite as far as Tamar had to go and all of those tricky family situations, but we can respect that Tamar did what she had to do within the confines of her society to get the justice she deserved and the care that she needed. That's all I have for today. I wonder if that leaves you with a different perspective of this story. I know I'm looking at it a little bit differently than I used to. We're going to talk some more about these amazing women in the next couple days. I will talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista Family of Ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.